Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BAInsights session. Today, we're talking about reporting, status, and transparency. And I'm really pleased to have two excellent guests with me to join us for that session. So we're going to start with some introductions. And Swetha, if I can ask you to introduce yourself first, if you don't mind, please.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me on this podcast. So I started my career with Verizon in the year 2013. So I have over 9+ years of experience as a business analyst and in project management. From there, I moved to Citibank, and then I was with Barclays, delivering the regulatory campaigns. And then I decided to do an MBA in International Business Management from Germany. So currently, I am a student. I've completed my thesis successfully. I've given my dissertation, and I have just one more subject left for this year, and then I'll be completing it by February. So this is in short about me. And just to add, my passion for business analysis or being a business analyst started from the second year of my college, where they introduced the SDLC life cycle to us. And that's when I decided, yes, I want to be a business analyst. And thank God that I'm here, pursuing that and learning more about it.
That's brilliant. And it's nice to hear not only the background and going back into studies and learning more, and that the studies were behind wanting to get into business analysis in the first place, but also, that project management experience that you have as well will
Yeah.
be an interesting perspective as we talk about today's topic. So thank you for that. Christina, over to you for your introduction, please.
Hi, yes. So, hi, John. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again. And I am Christina Tan. I am a transformation consultant working at Burendo. And I've worked in business transformation and change for, say, nearly 10 years now, if I round it up. And I also volunteer for IIBA UK. And so, as a consultant, that's my day job at Burendo, I suppose, I specialize in I guess, a couple of areas, business analysis and product management. I have also had experience as a business intelligence reporting functional consultant in the past. So I'm particularly interested in this topic that we're going to discuss today.
Excellent. Thank you, Christina. Again, perspective more widely as a consultant as well. I'm sure that will be helpful. And it's nice to see you again. For anybody that doesn't know, Christina, in her IIBA capacity, helped myself and Claire in our most recent conference we had last year on BA Enjoyment. So, your help was really appreciated. So thank you again, Christina, for that. And thank you for being part of the pod. So let's go into the first question, and I'll put this to Swetha. So why is it important for transparency or reporting of status, and who benefits from it?
So to start with, why is it required, like what it is for me? Let's say everyone who's included in the project, right? Whoever is involved in the project, they need to know what's happening from the start till end. And it's not like no, we can hide something and say, hey, yeah, this is this, but only a part of it. And being transparent makes it easier at each level. Let's say at the lower level where the team is working on it, there is a middle level where there are different stakeholders who are interested in it, and the leadership who knows there is a work that is happening below. Keeping it transparent, ensures that everybody who's involved, they know what's happening and they benefit out of it. And keeping it transparent ensures if there are any risks, let's say, maybe we are working on it and there is something at a bigger level which says, hey, this shouldn't happen or this should have happened along with it. It just lets us know beforehand. And that is one aspect I would say keeping it transparent and having a status update is important. And who benefits? Everyone involved.
So, and certainly as you were talking this, it was obvious that as you're talking about a whole range of stakeholders who might be involved in the project as well. It's really that case of just making sure everybody's aware and has the access to the information that you have as well. So excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Christina.
But yeah, I think to kind of echo Swetha, in parts of our answer was it's actually really essential transparency and status reporting to really ensure stakeholders are aligned, informed, and can make timely decisions. Really, so the reports that typically support decision making requires transparency for all sorts of reasons, from kind of governance, to things like statutory compliance in some other industry cases, especially where there's a lot more legislation in certain industries. In terms of who benefits, I guess there are kind of three key groups I can think of. So, of course, the executives, the project sponsors, and those whose business decisions and divisions are actually impacted by the project, so have to knock-on impact at a higher level. And of course, project teams. Sometimes, we've been in project environments before, where sometimes for project members, it can be difficult to see the wood from the tree sometimes if they're deeply focusing in just one area, like focusing on a testing defect, for example. It's difficult to really see holistically what's happening in the project. So to give them that transparency at a holistic level is really important. A project's latest status, trends, issues, etc., provides them with the holistic view of that project landscape, and combined with conversations with these individuals, I think it can also help them understand the significance of their roles as well within a project. I think those who have been in a managerial position will understand the kind of impact it has on individuals and the morale within project teams as well. And of course, the third one is the external stakeholders. Sometimes they just like to be informed, especially if you're a shareholder of a large organization, understanding what some of the rate of returns of certain high profile projects might have on their sort of profile within a portfolio. It might matter to that team as well. So I think those are the three kind of main groups of stakeholders who benefits.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, really, both of you have highlighted that need to sort of spread awareness and share information that may be findings of your analysis, as an example, with the wider group, whether they're the executives or the stakeholders or the teams or even externals, as Christina mentioned as well. I think really just to complement really what you've all said, I think for me, that sort of enables a bit of course correction, whether it's from the executives or from the project leaders or project managers as well, because often they're reliant on information that the BAs find out. And actually, it's only when that information comes to the fore that we can decide on what is the next course of action, what might be the priority as a result, or how does that impact some of the dependencies. And I think I won't fall into the trap of repeating you when it comes to who benefits from this, but I think someone else to add is the BA, because I think if you're sufficiently transparent and you're proactively transparent with your reporting, then actually you benefit in different ways. Because number one, you're not, you don't have people perhaps asking you ad hoc questions about how you're progressing, and also people will see that you're quite open and you're sharing where you are. So actually, they'll start to grow confident in your abilities and your credibility as a BA as well. So we shouldn't forget the fact it's not just for those around us; it's for us as well. But excellent
It
start.
it
Sorry.
does foster a trust factor because they see you as a person who has ensured everything is known to them. Similarly, it just fosters a factor that, okay, hey, this person has kept everything transparent. There is nothing to doubt, or let's say which raises a doubt or of an intention that, hey, there's something missing out. So it just says that who you as a person is handling this project, and it creates an amazing trust factor. I have experienced this in previous jobs. Like, it makes me feel good as well. Like, okay, with Shweta, yes, we know, okay, everything is there out there, and that gives a good feeling as well. So I think what you said right now, we as a business analyst, we are also benefited by it. Yes, I mean, the trust factor is created there.
Yeah, I would agree. And in fact, I mean, just have the next question. I'll ask Christina first. So, Christina, I mean, how do you ensure transparency of your analysis, and how might this align or conflict perhaps with wider initiatives or product or project reporting that goes on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, and I ensure this is transparency in analysis through, I say, well, as I walk through, as I go through a typical project, where we start with stakeholder analysis, we'll identify what stakeholders are, and also figuring out what's the best way of engaging with them. Not always, they're not always the same. Different groups have different working styles, and making sure that we engage with them in the agreed way, and providing sufficient documentation. So sufficient documentation, maybe not over documentation. It's really important there. So as I'm approaching a piece of analysis, I'll always factor in my documentation, sort of what problem is we're trying to solve. What's the scope of the analysis? How would any reports directly or indirectly address this? Coming to that concluding bit of the analysis as well. And also really important to include all the information and logic included used to derive the outcomes using data-driven insights to validate assumptions and solutions. So all of that will require constant feedback loops with the identified stakeholder groups to help build that. We mentioned trust and credibility earlier. So absolutely, I think this kind of brings everything that we've talked about into the documentation throughout the analysis to make sure that we're aligned throughout that journey as well. And making sure that also these documentation, this is always overlooked sometimes, that it's to make it accessible to stakeholders, making these documentation easily, easy to navigate for stakeholders, giving that transparency of sign off, who signed it off, who's sponsoring, which prevents any conflict of any sort of misunderstanding or misalignments throughout the process. And for analysis completed, maybe after reports are published, it's always advisable to create some kind of note or documentation that demonstrates that, we've considered things like impact analysis and requirements traceability.
And you made a number of good points there, Christina, but if I focus just on the accessibility one, I mean, that's or the access really, such a good point in terms of, getting, providing access of your analysis and your findings and your content to your stakeholders. And if people are producing formal status reports, they can, of course, link those reports to the more detailed artifacts as they need to. And then I guess it goes back to the point Swetha was making in terms of another way of building up that trust. But hopefully as well, sort of starts, wider behaviours that are similarly transparent. Because whilst we want to be transparent as the BA for sure, it's beneficial. It's more beneficial if everybody involved, whether it's project managers or stakeholders, are also equally transparent with every piece of information they can share as well. So thank you, Christine. Swetha, what would you add to that?
So I would agree with whatever Christina said. Just one more point where the stakeholders are not on board with the process. Let's say you already have a process in place, and when you appraise them, when you let them know this is how certain things are done to move forward in the project or the product that you're working on, if they're not aligned with the process, that is the conflict factor that I would just like to highlight here. When they're not aware of the process and they would want to bypass it, being a BA, you ensure from the requirements part, you're right, but also from the process part that you are aligned and the stakeholders are also aligned. And if somebody is not aligned, it ensures when the status is being reported. In my previous organization, there was a case like that, and it was an important project. But then when the business is not aligned with it, and they still want it to be delivered, there was a conflict. And this was resolved only when the status was shared. Like, no, they are not adhering to the process, and we cannot bypass the process. So I think that was my biggest learning, that no, it helped me to stop it right there and let the leadership deal with what is right now, what the issue was there. And that was helpful only because of the transparency that was there on the status reporting. So yeah, that is the only thing that I would want to add.
I mean, that point really gets me thinking as well, but because process can mean a number of things in this instance, and they're all perfectly relevant. But like sharing transparency over what you found the process to be is very useful. But also, I think the point you're making there, that if we can provide transparency about sometimes the processes that are related to our analysis or to the project, or, for example, how to get a change implemented. That's not always a process that's evident to our stakeholders, and it's
Yeah.
useful for them to be aware of that through some transparency, so they don't just expect that a 5-minute conversation with you or I means that we'll have a similar length conversation with the developer and it will be live the next day. Hopefully it might be, but probably not. So yeah, and I mean, on top of your excellent answers, I think what I would add as well in terms of approach to transparency is really I tend to try and share as soon as possible, and so rather than trying to finesse every piece of analysis before it gets shared with a wider audience, although there are some cases where that is appropriate, try and share the information as soon as we can, because that gives my stakeholders earlier opportunity to tell me if anything I've written down is confusing or incorrect or there's more to it. So sharing sooner rather than later is better. And actually, to that note as well, I think we just need to not be afraid as BAs to share content and updates that are somewhat in progress and they're not perfect, or we don't know all the answers. As long as people know that we're sharing analysis that we haven't got all the answers on or it is incomplete, then I think we can be quite comfortable in sharing it. And hopefully the result of it will be that the stakeholders or the experts around us might be able to contribute and fill in some of the gaps or help us complete our analysis more effectively. But they're the only points I would add to yours. And I mean, Swetha, I'd like to talk about, how do you determine when it comes to, this transparency or reporting or status, what is the right frequency, the format, or even the audience that you choose for reporting of progress or status?
To start with, I would say the frequency shouldn't be like every day or every 2 days or 3 days. Ideal would be, let's say, if it is something extremely important and there are a lot of stakeholders who are having an eye on your project, and the project is it has an impact, like a variable cost impact, and there are a lot of people who are eyeing on it. It is good to appraise them every 3 4 days. I mean, ideally, for me, I would suggest weekly once, because the rest of the days everyone are working in, if they're working in agile environment, every day we have an update and we know what to do. If there is any issue or impediment, we solve it right then and there. But then for me, a weekly all audience update is a good one, because it doesn't bombard them with a lot of information, lot of status is okay, this is what is happening. And for me, it is weekly once. And the format, I would say, whatever action was planned for the week, against it, has it happened? If it is in progress, it is in progress. And if there is anything that's blocking it, no, you say that, yes, this is the blocker there. And everyone who's involved, they'll know, yes, okay, this is a blocker and they're working on it. And you do it right on the 5th day morning, not at the end of the day, like when people are leaving for the week. And then they come back on Monday morning and they look at it like, oh, this was happening. You didn't let me know. So I would always say like once a week with everything in there, and just the right amount of stuff so that they know, okay, it is on track or something is in progress. There is the blocker, they're working on it, and give them a day to analyze it, or let's say half a day to absorb in it. So that is something that I would like to follow, and I have been following. And it depends again based on the project. If they want a daily update, there was a time when we had to update daily to all the leaders, because they all were eyeing on that project, and only for certain period of time. Let's say for until it was resolved, until the issue was resolved. We did it for like a week or 7 or 8 days time, but then we went back to our usual format. But yeah, that's the format that I would like to follow.
And what was obvious there is that, obviously, as you said, it depends. So there'll be people maybe watching this who've been experiencing projects currently or previously that they might report more or less frequently, which is perfectly fine, depending on the scenario as well. So I think that depends point was very useful, as well as recognizing that, you've also got to think about who is going to receive the updates. And it's about giving them time to be able to receive it and digest it and take action. And maybe
Yes.
to your point, like send them an urgent update last thing on a Friday is not particularly helpful to them if you need them to react before the end of the week, as an example, which of
Yes.
course will probably be impossible. But Christina, it'd be interesting to hear your view on the same topic, please. Same question.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so yourself and Swetha has really made some really great points. And regarding frequency, I suppose my take to it would allude to when I've previously mentioned stakeholder analysis. I guess understanding the vested interests of various stakeholder groups and factoring in some of them part of the communications plan is there are certain common facts about the project that they need to know about. These will usually be the reports, and I would usually agree frequency with them if it's not ad hoc. Sort of what regular reports needs to go out and when quite early on, but have that documented and check in with them quite frequently throughout the whole project. So that's how I would typically just tend to sort of look into it. But in terms of the format, I something I quite enjoy doing is as I start to understand my stakeholders a bit more, start with maybe a reporting prototype, test the waters, see using real data as close to it as possible at the very beginning stages. So asking some common questions like, is the report easy enough to understand for the users, and how does it actually meet their requirements? All of that we can do through rapid feedback loops before these reports actually go out live. So get test the waters to see how well the report's understood at first glance, and also it'll give me an understanding of how comprehensive any documentation needs to be. Some are quite easy enough to understand, and you probably want a document, but it doesn't have to be as comprehensive as maybe some make it out to be because the logic is actually clear enough. So I tried to solicit these early feedback to capture any improvement areas before reports go out officially.
Yeah, I would agree. That's very, very much like my approach as well, Christina. I mean, it's very much find out the situation for the project and the stakeholders. I mean, if, for example, and we rarely are these days, but if we were all in the same room or on the same floor, then there'd be less value in me spending time putting it onto an internal website to present it. It might be better to write it on the whiteboard that everyone can see, as an example. Unfortunately, that happens less now, so it's generally does have to be somewhere we can access remotely rather than as simple as on the board. But that definitely comes into it. And as you were talking there as well, Christina, I mean, it made me think that, to a large extent, we need to think about the status reporting, in a similar way to, we were looking at a regular report. We have to think about the user experience of that status report. It's no good. Stakeholders we hand these reports to have to work particularly hard to try and extract the key points we're trying to tell them, or, we hide away information. So that definitely, made me think about that. But I think, the heart of it, for me, it's about speaking to the stakeholders, understanding their needs. And, I try to report as quickly, appropriately as I can, I would say. But that does tend to change based on the audience and the project, I would say. But there we go. All right. And Christina, I wonder then, I mean, what would be some of the key elements that you might include in status updates to help ensure clarity or relevance for your stakeholders?
So for most stakeholders, for all stakeholders, in fact, well, status reporting, current status would be helpful. Status, and also I'll probably say status not just of a given reporting period, but also maybe some trends of the statuses in previous periods to see any fluctuations over time. So I would also provide the qualitative elements of reporting, so a concise summary of the overall progress in this current reporting period, and presumably with the last status with its context on its own, provides to create that overall picture for stakeholders. I'll probably also say key metrics, and this will obviously differ by project, but include those relevant quantitative data. So progress percentages is probably a really common one. budget utilization as well. I think usually the project manager works with the business analyst to obtain that information. Timeline adherence, and also providing measurable insights against any agreed project milestones as well. And also things like achievements. So once we've hit those milestones, we want to call out those achievements explicitly to highlight those accomplishments since the last update. And also we want to look at any, I would say not exhaustively, but at this level, but maybe a high level stakeholder actions, those of the highest importance and priority. We probably want to specify those at a high level there in that report. With risk and issues and next steps. So I think it kind of summarizes the so what with the latter for the stakeholders. And something I like to do as well is to kind of create, when I mention accessibility, the links to the project repository if they want to refresh their memories or try to obtain further information of the project, have that included in the status reports as well, because something at this level is likely to be high level. So for the stakeholders who are probably overseeing several projects in the portfolio, they probably could use the link if they want to find out more information.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, I know there's loads of examples of this, but even if your status report was as simple as BRD complete, there'll be some people that might not have had a copy or don't know where you're storing it. So just putting that link, it might prevent you having to field questions in your day as to where those BRDs are. Excellent. Thank you, Christina. Swetha, what would be have you got more to add to that point?
I mean, she has already called out almost all that we're aware of. Just to echo the point where she said, like, just one line of saying, giving an appreciation to the team, like, okay, this is done early, or 2 days before, 3 days before. So that just gives a motivation to the person either who is working, or it is like a recognition given to the effort that was taken. So that highlighted in the status report just adds like a feather in your
Yeah,
hat.
I agree.
And
Because
that
that
was
point
a good
Christina
one,
made about
which, yeah, so almost everything is called out. The risk factor is called out. If no, the issue factor is called out, or wherever we are in the project is called out. But then the appreciation part that Christina mentioned is like, I felt personally people coming back and saying, "Hey, thank you to mention this on the status, report." And when it comes to agile management of your projects, the updated Jira boards with your issues and your conference boards, it's like a catalyst. No, it's the best part. To just go and look at it. So yes, so just to add to her point, this is the only thing that I have right now.
I mean, it's a really good point though, because I mean, I know Christina mentioned like achievements, but to your point, absolutely, no problem at all mentioning people in the team that are responsible for those achievements. If it is something you can apportion to one individual, as well, it can help them perhaps get the recognition that they might deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, for me, I think most of the things that I would have also thought about, you've definitely covered, so I won't repeat those. And I know, Christina mentioned metrics. I think, key one sometimes to include, or all the time really, is the RAG status, whether it's red, amber, green, is helpful. And I particularly like the point that Christina was mentioning about the trend as well, because, if it's green but it's been red, that's a positive thing. We're trending in a positive direction. But yeah, I think other than that, maybe as well, if there's any key findings that you want to share as well, is sometimes appropriate. I know it's not always the focus of everyone's analysis, but if that is the focus, to observe key issues or pain points or whatever it might be, sharing those is definitely a good thing to do as well.
Yes.
But you've done such a good job. I don't know much I can add. So then, I mean, if we think then we're pretty clear on the key elements of our status report. I'd like to know, and I'll start with you, Swetha, on this one. So how would you tailor your reporting as you work with different levels of stakeholders? So whether that's the executives or sponsors, other members of the team, or take an example that Christina mentioned earlier, externals?
So I'll start with the internal team first. So they are someone who are working exhaustively on the project. So for them, there is a detailed level of status reporting that I would do. And when it comes to the executives, they do not want to know that at a task level. They'll never be interested in the task level. For them, it is always what I feel is the objective. What impact have we achieved till now, or what value are we adding, is most important. And let's say when it comes to reporting a risk factor as well, what is the risk and how is it impacting the business, or how is it stopping it from adding the value to the business, is what is important for the executives, I feel, most of the time, because that's where they're interested in. Because if they are to be involved, they'll only look at it and they can comment on it. And when it comes to the externals, so we have been working exhaustively with the external team. When I was with Barclays and Citi, um, there was an impact of sending the campaigns out with the external team. So for them, they are working with different other organizations as well, not just one organization. And keeping them up to date with every single detail is important if it is impacting their work and their timing.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because the externals won't necessarily have
yes,
the same interest as the executives, will be more focused on value
yes,
delivery, time frames, costs, etc. But they'll
yes,
want to know, is there any key changes of direction, or is priorities
yes,
changed? For example.
yeah.
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you.
So that is one.
And Christina, what would be your view on that same point?
There are some, again, really great points made already. I suppose going back to, it's all about understanding the people we're working with, the stakeholders. So I tailor those reporting approaches to the different stakeholder categories I've found through stakeholder analysis, understanding fully that these different categories will look through, that the projects through a different pair of lens. So as Swetha has already mentioned, so I then kind of analyzed the interview outcomes to create, I suppose, different types of reports that cater specifically to those common groups I've found, with a view of potentially making further customizations if there are some more niche specific individuals who might want to get some more direct reporting metrics than others. So that's how I would typically approach it. But yeah, I think for executives, absolutely, it's more the focus on the high level strategic information and key metrics, and emphasize the overall progress status as mentioned in that previous question. Quantitative data, I don't know about you, lots of the senior stakeholders I work with love numbers. And so it's really bringing all of that to life. Whereas I think for project teams, yes, they like that holistic view of the project, but there's also that emphasis on a more detailed action-oriented type of updates as well. They want to know where we are and potentially kind of when the group will convene next to talk about this. We have maybe the individuals working on when like work. This is probably something that executives will be, I don't know, less interested about. They're interested in the results of all of this, but we probably want to kind of take it down a level or two for the project teams. So and also establish regular check-ins and sort of updates for those specific actions.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, all I can add to those excellent points really is, as advice to other BAs, is just to be a bit adaptive and be a bit versatile and be open to evolving your approach. And basically, the foundation of it is the points you both made in terms of speaking to your stakeholders. And I think it makes me also think about a point Christina made in the last question or two, when you was talking about like the communication plan. If you can make your communication plan sufficiently adaptive itself, that it can be enhanced and changed as people start to evolve their thinking and change the way that they need reporting, then all the better. We need to make the act of reporting and being transparent as efficient as we can, but also we need to, on the flip side, we need to make sure that our stakeholders are getting the most from us being transparent as well, and not being left with questions that they have unanswered, because it wouldn't really fulfill the brief if that's the case. So we've heard a lot about, I guess, what status reporting and transparency is, how to do it to a level. I wonder, Christina, are there any particular tools that you've used or platforms that you find helpful with being transparent or providing reports?
Yes, absolutely. There are so many in the market already, but then there are a number of options. Yeah, so I think based on my own experience, a lot of my consulting clients subscribe to Microsoft and Office 365, and it's usually part of tech stack. So the reporting tool that I tend to use quite a lot is Power BI. It's used for business analytics and based on that, making strategic decisions based on data-driven insights about the business. I like using this tool for a couple of reasons. So firstly, it provides that functionality to provide narration for reporting dashboards. Things are visual, but also gives me that opportunity to explain trends and provide the insights that that goes beyond the naked eye for trends of various graphs, etc. And secondly, based on what I said earlier, it facilitates a swift feedback loop through the built-in comment feature. So I wouldn't have to draft out, sort of numerous emails to stakeholders where I can tag people in to invite them to review and comment. So it's becoming the tool of choice for that reason. It's quite efficient and it's pretty easy to take in data and report it and customize, configure, etc. So it's really powerful. The second one, I'd probably say to complement Power BI in the wider project management context, it would be good to embed the Power BIs into virtual working spaces, I guess, to the organization's liking. So one's really common, it's Confluence. It's usually where a lot of sort of project documentation are sort of stored, or in some small organizations, maybe in the US, maybe Notion is another one. I use that in a personal space, but that allows BI reports to, like Power BI, to actually get embedded to that space. So to make that the reports accessible, it's actually really good to kind of put those things into the right place to help with the accessibility, and also helps improve utilization of the reports. You want to really get the value out of the reports from the people that ought to be seeing it. Well, put it in the place that they expect to see it in the repository. So it's good to kind of think about where this report will belong as well. That's to get the most out of it. And the other thing I probably want to add as well is maybe explore AI tools. I know that AI tools are now a feature in Notion, and maybe and there's another one called Claude as well, that aids perhaps a trend analysis if you provide it with enough information to aid efficiency of the reporting process. But the caveat is always check manually. But there are tools are emerging that will help provide these reporting insights. It's worth exploring.
Thank you, Christine. Yeah, a number of excellent examples there. Thank you. Swetha?
Yeah, so Christine has like covered almost everything that I had on mind. And then just to highlight, there are some times in a regulatory setup, when it comes to organizations who are not yet who have fully utilized either the Confluence or the tools that are already present for them. We already have this Agile, Jira, and Confluence in place, but then there's also the SharePoint, which still acts as one of the trusted in a regulatory or in an environment where it is not fully shared. So I feel there is also a place where people can use these tools to share information. And then as we have our age-old Excel and PowerPoint, which is always used to say, if you're not doing it regularly, let's say weekly or bi-weekly, then Excel and PowerPoint are good if it is done on a monthly basis, where you're just showing the growth, what was there previous with the previous month and for this month. And that is one way of also showing the progress and transparency, just to call out.
I would agree. And I think it's nice to hear like different ends of the spectrum there to some example, because see, Christina mentioned AI and Power BI and Confluence. Perhaps for some, that's probably an advanced combination of tools there, but it's also worth recognizing that you can use PowerPoint and Excel and Word, in the right context. And as long as you're providing the right information in the right way to people so they can access it, it is an appropriate tool. And sometimes we can overcomplicate things looking for the most advanced tool, when maybe an Excel or a PowerPoint does the trick. One example of that springs to mind is just providing transparency over your stakeholders. I tend to use Excel to manage my stakeholder list, and I make that transparent. I definitely wouldn't dream of turning it into another format. Although, touching on a point Christina made, I tend to use Confluence to put a bit of messaging around the stakeholder list, and then I point people to it. So that's what I tend to do. So excellent points at either end of the spectrum on that one in terms of tools. I think additionally to that, sometimes there are requirements management tools that you might use specifically, so that can help. Sometimes on top of that, we might be using Mural or Miro boards, and we can integrate reporting on that as well. As long as we're making whatever we use accessible to the people that need to access it, then I'm sure any tool is beneficial. Probably the more important thing is to think about what it is we're reporting, as we've spoken about, who we're reporting to, as we've spoken about, and why they need the information and the frequency of it. All things we've covered as well. So good. So then maybe as we draw to a close, one final question, which would be nice to hear your views on. Swetha, I'll start with you first, really. So it'd be good if you could share your most valuable lesson that you've learned, or advice that you might want to share relating to effective reporting and transparency.
One thing that I've learned over the years is communicate. Keep simple communication, and being approachable, as well as being in a place where we can get back feedback, has helped me being more transparent with my project status, or let's say reporting in itself. So being into project management and BA, one thing that I've learned is communicate, ensure that people know what's happening at the right time. It's not like, okay, there are cases where you try to save your team which is here, and there are external stakeholders, and when you try to save your team, or maybe just to look better, it won't lead us to any good place. It might just complicate everything that is already in place. So that I have learned, like, keep it simple, communicate, and also be ready to take feedback. Okay, this is working out for them, it is not working out for them. So
Yeah,
this is the one simple advice that I've learned, and I would like to share.
Often the most simple piece of advice are the most appropriate ones. I mean, as you said that point there about communicate, it sort of made me realise that when we talk about status and transparency, we're not always just talking about producing a status report. And a lot of the time, we're actually providing status and visibility verbally long before we put anything to paper. So that shouldn't be overlooked as a very exceptional, very acceptable medium to communicate information. But we just need to make sure as well that we're consistent. So nothing worse than verbally telling somebody that the project's on track, and yet your status update the following day might show a RAG status of red to indicate that perhaps it isn't quite as on track as you said it was. So that excellent point and a piece of advice there, Swetha. Thank you. And Christina.
Yeah, so again, great points made already. And what we add to that is the fact that behind the reports is data, but in front of the reports are real people seeking information, and we're looking to really kind of leverage those reports to help address their business needs. So going back to the whole notion of people communications, so how do we best translate these requirements into sort of information at a glance that would help them sort of make key decisions in a way that resonates with them. So that's really important. And for reports to be effective and transparent, I always feel like we that needs to be, what is transparency? What is effectiveness? All of that needs to come out, through early engagement with these user groups, to get those defined as early as possible. And so it, of course, will probably evolve over time, but really it's to kind of set expectations, because if we're going to be reporting on trends, it's important that the consistency of the reports, not just the reporting figures, but also sort of what the underlying principles of these reports remains consistent over time, and changes are being tracked in a sort of transparent way. So I think that's really important. Going back to why it's important to have a stakeholder communications plan. It's important to have check-ins with stakeholders. And finally, I think it's also important to acknowledge that user needs will evolve, as I mentioned. So I think maybe to demonstrate business agility, I found it really exciting that we do have some AI tools that could actually help us in our journey in accelerating that process of reporting, so that we can actually help to think more strategically as BAs. So I think that's something that these tools are going to be more advanced over time, but perhaps BAs could start utilizing a bit more of these tools.
Yeah, I'm sure they could. I'm sure they could. I mean, and what definitely comes across is throughout the sessions from yourself and now also Christina, stakeholders, the importance of them, and it's all about the stakeholder really. I think in that sense, I mean, the next bit of advice I would add really is just to try and make sure that those stakeholders receiving status updates are not surprised by the update. To try and hopefully, if you're communicating with them to the point that Swetha made regularly, they'll know the situation. They'll know if there's delays, if there's dependencies or issues. The status report will hopefully just formally reflect what they already know, because you've been talking to them constantly and regularly. So that would be the small bit of advice I would add on top of the excellent pieces you finished with as well. And talking of finishing, feels like we're at a fairly good point to take call it a day. But I really appreciate the insight you both shared on a topic that quite likely every BA is impacted by at certain points. Hopefully, from listening to what you both shared today, they'll appreciate that maybe there's easier ways, more effective ways, or different ways of approaching that status reporting and transparency, as well as perhaps also realising we're also the beneficiaries of it, so not to be too off put by it. But thank you again, and we'll call it a day. So thank you both. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you all.